Hey, welcome back to the 30 Second Success podcast. I am so glad that you are here. I'm Laura Templeton with 30 Second Success. And if you've ever believed the answer to growing your business was simply to work harder, if you've ever found yourself solving everyone else's problems while quietly becoming the biggest bottleneck in your own life, or if success has ever started costing you more than you expected, this episode is for you. But first, if you are someone who knows you're meant for more, but you've been second guessing yourself, overthinking your message, or struggling to clearly communicate your value, I'd love to invite you to check out the Brand Success Hub. The Hub was created for purpose driven humans who want practical support in building confidence, strengthening communication, and creating more meaningful connections. Inside, you'll find live trainings, visibility strategies, AI powered communication support, leadership insights, and mini trainings from incredible experts and guests like the one joining us today. So you can learn more at 30secondsuccess.com/hub. Now, let's jump into today's conversation. Today's guest is Luke Tobin, CEO and founder of Tobin Capital and Unusual Group. Luke is a three-time exited, not excited, but yeah, I guess it would be exciting to
I
exit
am.
it,
I am
right?
excited. I'm excited to be here.
Three-time exited founder who knows firsthand what it takes to build, scale, and ultimately step away from a successful business. Most recently, he grew Digital Ethos into one of the UK's fastest growing marketing agencies before selling the company in 2022. Luke, thank you so much for joining me. I am so excited to have you here. And I know that you have definitely dealt with some of the ups and downs of success and understanding what severe burnout can do when trying to create a sustainable business. So let's jump in. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you're working on now?
Great. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for having me on the show. Really excited to be here. So at the moment, I'm back in founder mode actually, and kind of startup mode. I launched a new business called Unusual Group in October last year, which is built around the premise of helping founders in the creative industries to modernize, bring AI and technology into their businesses. That whole sector is going through rapid change. It's probably one of the most affected sectors by, with the AI revolution that we're all going through. And I saw an opportunity to help those founders weather some of those storms, build more sustainable businesses. So we're we're kind of deep into that. We're 17 businesses now that we've invested in, that we're coaching, and we're helping the founders. And it's been a wild 11 months, but enjoying it. So I'm in the trenches there. And then outside of that, I have my newsletter. I have my first book being published with Pam Macmillan. It'll be in stores middle of May next year. So yeah, very excited about all of the bits that I'm kind of doing.
I am excited to hear that you're writing a book. That's beautiful. I'm anxious to hear more about that. So you'll definitely have to fill us in on that one.
I
So
will.
you describe yourself as someone who naturally sees a problem and immediately begins looking for the solution. And was that always been part of how you're wired?
For sure. I mean, look, I think if you have that tendency, you find that you could be sat on a family vacation, sat in a restaurant, going to order a coffee, trying to solve problems that maybe do or often don't exist, looking for better ways of doing things. So I've always been innately curious, and I think that's led me into entrepreneurship and trying to solve problems for people. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, it's always been, I mean, sometimes it's also a negative, right? Because I probably can't sit and just enjoy my meal or sit and enjoy the scenery. I'm always thinking about commercially how something could be a bit sharper, but it's just the way I'm wired. Can't change it.
Sounds familiar. It's a challenge I face myself. So I love helping people. And I think that's one of the most important gifts that we can receive is having that heart of service and helping people. So I appreciate you
Yeah.
sharing that with us. You've said that most founders don't need more information, they need more clarity. Why do you say that?
Yeah, I think it's clarity in their own minds and in their own ambition, their own focuses. Like a lot of founders start a business because they have a really clear why. They need to, they feel they can do something better than maybe in the employment that they're in. They feel like they can fix a problem, or they can solve something, or they can do something well, or sometimes they're just motivated to get started because they think they can earn more money. There's all these, obvious things. But somewhere along the line, I think that still becomes like a pattern that of just normalness, and what they need is a clear route in sight to where they're actually trying to get to. And I think we all know this, every January everyone goes, right, New Year's resolutions, I've got these new goals, these are the things I'm doing. In business, it's so important to constantly have the long term, short, so the short, mid, and long always in mind of where you want to get to and how you want to get there. So, yeah, for me, it's clarity on destination, not just on the actions that you're doing day to day. So, like, where do you actually want to get to and why? And then you work backwards from there with the how.
Hmm. That's beautiful because one of the things that I work with clients is clarity on your message, right? And I think
Yeah.
understanding where you want to get to and how you're going to get there, but also more importantly, who you serve and how you serve them all tie in together in the work that we do every day. So I think it's so beautiful that clarity is part of the process that you take your clients through. And I really appreciate that about you. So um early in your career, you were message centered heavily around growth, success, and working harder. So tell us a little bit about what changed, what caused that to change.
Yeah, I think, when you're starting up and you're getting going, you don't know any different, and it's, you want to carve out success, financial, career success, progression, all of those things. So the only way I knew how to do that was to burn myself to the ground and work as hard as I could, outwork anybody else that was kind of trying to do the same thing. Is the only way I thought that it was possible to do it. But along the way, I had, some good experiences, lots of bad ones as well. I burnt out a couple of times along the way to a point where I just, I think if somebody had turned around in my last business and offered me no money just to take the stress away from me at some point, I would have probably just given the business away, which is, I know that sounds kind of like a flyaway comment, but I actually really do mean it. And I ended up selling that business for 8 figures. So it gives you an idea like how burnt out I was, to have considered at some point, I would have quite happily walked away. And I think the thing that I've learned, and over time now I've realize that is you have to build in a more sustainable way for longevity. It's no different to how you need to fuel a race car, and you need to constantly service it. You need to keep it in check. Your athletes, they fuel themselves, they give themselves break, it's breaks, and it's all that kind of stuff. I feel like being a high performer and an entrepreneur, you have to treat yourself as if you are an athlete, because you are. You're just a different form of athlete, and actually looking after yourself, health, sleep, time outside of work, all of those things actually compound into making you a much better performer when you're in the business. So, um, a lot of the work I do now is about building not just for the grind culture, but building for a sustainable way of stacking success. Because if we think to ourselves, like, what is success? Success isn't just finance and the outcome of, what you do. It's everything else that comes into it. There's kind of key pillars of life success, from health to family to well-being to all of these things. So, yeah, that's hopefully answers the question.
It really does. And one of the things that you just said there that sparked a question for me is what do you mean by stacking success?
So I believe that there are these core focuses or pillars where success can be judged, right? So you can be a really successful parent, you can be a really successful um, person at fitness and looking after your body and maintaining yourself. You could be successful in all these different aspects of life. But I don't now believe that just leaning into one of those pillars and being like archetypally really successful, so just being successful at business, I don't believe is actually being successful, because you're going to leave other stuff behind and you're going to feel shallow and empty in certain areas. And actually, are you going to be happy? And that's the piece that I think takes more work, is looking at how you can balance all of those pillars and build sustainably across them throughout your life. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be different seasons where you're focused more on one pillar than the other. But for me, it's important to look at success across all of them, and give yourself that balance.
Mm, I love that. And I think one of the things that you had shared with me was that you burnout really changed how you work and how you communicate. So can you share a little bit with us about how that came to be?
Yeah, definitely. I think just generally in my businesses, how and with the people that I work with, my advice originally was always that kind of hustle culture, work harder, do more, be relentless, all of those things, which don't get me wrong, there's an element of that that you still need to do, but you can be smart now with how you operate. And the one thing I now have as like non-negotiables in anybody that I coach is making sure that they get time out. And it can be simple things like taking a lunch break. I know it sounds ridiculous, but so many founders, and me included, sometimes still admit it, don't do it. But you need to take these breaks. You need to go for a walk. You need to make sure you still keep up your exercise regimes. You need to eat well. Like all of these things that sound so simple, but often just get deprioritized, make a huge impact in the way that you can perform in the business. So that's the way that I do it. And then communication generally is now very much about performance psychology and like how that plays into all of those aspects I've just touched on. So, to be the best performer, you need to be the best version of yourself.
Hmm. And I think it really is true that we need to take care of us, that well-rounded being. I think even stepping away from the work that you're doing allows you to have that clarity of mind. It gives you a refresh, gives you a restart, and
Yeah,
it actually gives you the ability to see things from a different perspective and to really be open to the what ifs, right? Those what if questions of, what if we tried this or what if we tried that? And you were sharing
definitely.
before about sitting in a restaurant and trying to figure things out, like solving people's problems. And I think sometimes stepping away allows us that playfulness that sometimes
Mhm.
can be absent when we're so focused on our work. So thank you for sharing that. How has
Definitely.
being more transparent affected the relationships you have with the people you serve?
Say that again, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. How has being more transparent, you shared with me about being more transparent in the work that you're doing
Yes.
now because of what you've been through. How has being more
Mm.
transparent affected the relationships you have with the people you serve?
Oh, it's made a massive difference. I mean, look, I think you need to be open and honest. And I think the ability to be transparent, sharing wins, but sharing struggles as well, builds more camaraderie, more understanding in people that you're either leading or that you're coaching. And look, some of our best learnings in life come from adversity and from struggle, and it is what it is. So I think trying to sugarcoat that or hide behind that is the wrong thing. So transparency, open communication, all of those things make a huge difference. And I actually find that your people actually rally behind you and will be more willing to support you and help nurture you through those tough times, so that you can then enjoy the good times together, basically. So, yeah, I found it to be a really powerful tool just to be very open, very transparent, and very, very honest with people.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the things I've been following you for years and receiving your emails for quite some time, and I have seen the transition where you are becoming more transparent, and I love getting your emails every week because I
Thank
think
you.
there's so much you share so openly some of the challenges that you and others may be struggling with, and you also offer solutions in that message, which I think is beautiful, and I really appreciate that. So I see it in your work. You're not just saying it. You're actually
Mm.
practicing it yourself. And I think that's really powerful when you're able to just model what you were teaching others to do and how effective it is. So thank you
Yeah.
for doing that. I really appreciate that in your work. So
No,
if you're
of course.
oh God, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
go on.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I think the key that I try to do with founders and entrepreneurs that are reading the newsletter but also involved in the content is, yeah, curating clarity, giving them like actionable insights. It's so easy to get overwhelmed in business, isn't it? And feel often like you're on your own. It's quite isolating being an entrepreneur, even if you're a co-founder. At least you have someone as a sparring partner, but still, there are times when it really is quite daunting, lonely. You're trying to make 100 decisions a day. You know that 50% of them might not be 100% the right decision, but you're still having to make them. It comes with a lot of overwhelm. So I try to be very open and honest about that from a perspective of, people that have seen me go through and exit businesses and whatever. The only reason I've ever got to that outcome is by going through all of the pain and the hardship that comes with it. You talk about these kind of success calluses. It really is the way that you stack for success over time.
Hmm. I love that. That's really interesting. And you keep bringing up the stack success, and I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. The stacking success. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So, if this conversation is resonating with you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share the podcast with someone who may need this reminder today, because success shouldn't require us to sacrifice everything that made us want success in the first place. Sometimes growth isn't about doing more, it's about getting clear enough to know what actually matters. And that's exactly why we have these conversations here. So, um, you know, Luke, I appreciate you sharing so much with us, especially from that personal side and the experiences that you have. And I think that's really important for audiences to hear from you. And you, like I said, you do share that in your email. But one of the things I'd like to dive into is not building things alone. So how important are relationships and your network? How important have they been to you throughout your own entrepreneurial experience?
To be honest, I think, if you can really leverage people around you and the network, it is a superpower. And I think a lot of us probably underutilize that. And I think in this day and age with social media, with LinkedIn, with all of our kind of wider connections and how globalized just communication is and the ability, look at us jumping on these calls and meeting and there are so many ways that you can get help from people in your network just by asking. And what I tend to find is that, if you reach out to somebody and you have a genuine ask, for help, 9 times out of 10, someone's going to give you some feedback, some advice, whatever it might be. So I always encourage founders to go out and stress test that really early on. Um, I also think you can get early validation from a business, and we're launching a software company within my current business, Unusual Group, and at the moment we've gone out to my network and a few of the other co-founders network, and we built a beta testing group of 300 businesses, which has been absolutely amazing. And that was all just through outreach, saying, "Hey, looking for a bit of help. Would you be happy to jump on, give us some feedback?" And now we're just building these amazing relationships with these individuals on these calls every week. And, it's really helped us to shape the product and making sure that the product serves people in a way that we need it to be. But if we hadn't leveraged that opportunity that the network has provided, then we would have missed out on that. So I think it's really important. I also think this kind of merges in a little bit to personal brand and like how you present yourself now digitally and on social media more important than ever. And again, doing that the right way just creates more opportunity for a stronger network and more help when you need it. And the other thing is that goes into this is giving back a bit as well. So if people ask you for help where it makes sense, give it. And I think there's that kind of paying forward piece as well makes sense.
Hmm. A lot of people have poured into us over the years, and you're absolutely right. Paying it forward really does make an impact, right? And that's how we help one
It
another.
does. It
But
does.
one of the things that I would love for you to share is, how should founders think about building the right circles around themselves? How do you
Mm.
identify the right circle of people that can help move you forward?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I mean, for me, I do an exercise every year where I look at my immediate circle of influence, people that I'm learning from, that I'm following, whether that's on social media, articles I'm reading, newsletters I'm receiving. And I will always, there's only so much you can digest as a human, right? And so much distraction you can have. So you want to make sure that the things that you're consuming are aligned to your priorities. So there's lots of little things I did to save time on this as well, by the way. I stopped watching the news. I know that if it's bad enough, someone's going to tell me now. A lot of people look at me, they're like, okay, not sure I agree with that. But anyway, that gives me more time to focus on the things in my sphere of influence that I want to digest. And typically it's a little bit more positive than the news would be. So looking at individuals that help you get to that kind of next room of growth that you're trying to get to. So I'm always trying to push my boundaries, do things that make me feel a little bit uncomfortable, maybe trying to look at a network that's slightly beyond where I am today, whether that be with, exited founders that have, in a different space or industry to me, or a different room that I would like to get into. I try to then have like an aspirational group, but I also have like a peer group of people that I want to learn from that are going through similar challenges. So I think it should be a deliberate thing. It shouldn't just be by chance. You can orchestrate the network that you have around you to make sure, one, you're adding value, and two, that you're receiving value and that you're learning and being able to, progress yourself that way.
One of the things that I encourage a lot of clients in my circle, in my mastermind, is to evaluate their networks every year, because as we grow, are we still, is that network still serving? Are we able to serve that network? So you want to look at it from both perspectives, but
Yeah.
also, if you are moving faster than the people in your network, if you are elevating in your business, you need to be running with people who are either running with you or running just ahead of you, that are willing to
Hmm.
bring you along and encourage you. And it's something, and I appreciate you sharing that that's something that you do every year, because it is very powerful. Now, can you share again very quickly the three different core circles that you really like to focus on?
Yeah, so you want your immediate circle of influence, which is people that are probably a similar stages to you that you can learn from, and you can troubleshoot problems that they're going to understand because they're in a similar stage. Then you want like an aspirational group. So these are people that might be in a room. It might be just a perception of the room, but it seems like it's beyond where you are, that you'd like to get into. And some of those people that have maybe been more successful in different aspects of life. So that is a really good place to be as well. And then you probably want a sphere of like educational resource as well. So it might be in different industries, it might be things that are just opening your mind up in different ways. So I have, various interests that are outside of my core focus from a career perspective that I like to still bring into my kind of sphere of learning and education. So those three things I think are important, and just being really ruthless and reevaluate, make sure they're still adding value. Yeah, I think it's a really good habit to get into each year.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you diving into that a little bit deeper. It was something that like kind of sparked a little bit of interest. And you're absolutely right. There are different spheres that you do, groups that you run with, and depending on how you relate to those and what impact they have on your life, it really makes a big difference.
It
And
does,
I
it
think
does.
sometimes too it comes down to what we're reading. And have I love the professional development side of things, but my inbox can get really full of other
Hmm.
people's content, and I'm like, wait, why am I reading this? It has nothing to do with what I am interested in. So sometimes I
Yeah,
have to go through and unsubscribe to a lot of things, which that in and of itself is very freeing. So thank you for
it
sharing
is.
that. Yeah. So in a recent email, and I already referenced this once, you encourage entrepreneurs to think about their exit from day one. What
Mm.
do you mean by exit, and why so early?
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, look, for me, building with an exit in mind does two things. First of all, it gives you the right foundations um, for success overall. So you are building from day one with a de-risk mindset, which means that you're looking at what the potential buyer might be looking for, which means you're probably going to build stronger foundations, less scrappy
Mhm.
foundations, and you're in a good place. For me, also, I think that from a founder point of view, it's really important that you have a light at the end of the tunnel and a goal, like a tangible goal to be working towards at all times. I think where a lot of businesses get stuck and they end up on this kind of hamster wheel and not knowing which direction to turn is when they don't have a clear end in sight. So from a founder mindset and psychology point of view, really, really powerful to have this 5-year plan, 10-year plan, whatever it is, like within 10 years, I'm going to sell my business. And I tell founders that I work with to sit and draw this out in vision boards because I love seeing things visually. It doesn't work for everybody, but just writing it down, keeping it on a notepad, sticky note, however you want to do it, Like, what is that big, audacious 10-year goal? So I want to sell my business for $10 million, and I'm going to sell it to this profile of buyer. And you've just got something visually that you can work towards. Then when you actually work back from that, okay, well, to sell for $10 million, in this particular industry, I need 2 million a year in profit. Okay, well, today I'm here. In order to get there, I need to sell to 100, 200,000 customers, whatever it is. If I was to do that over the next 5 years, that means I need to sell two a month. I think I can do two a month. And like all of a sudden, you start to articulate it and break it down in a way that gives you something really tangible, and it gives you your short, mid, and long-term goals. Um, there's going to be loads of roads, loads of bumps in the road. There's going to be loads of challenges, loads of things you can't plan for. But by having this anchor that you're moving towards, it will always keep you on that kind of true north direction. So I think it's really powerful. There's also an element of um, you make, I think, arguably better decisions when you're thinking about building a business for exit rather than just a lifestyle business or something that you just do. Because if it's a lifestyle business or something you do, you're probably going to clear out more of the cash, less investing of the cash. You're probably not thinking structurally about, okay, well, if I got hit, God forbid, by a bus tomorrow, who could come in and run this business? Whereas if you're building with an exit in mind, you start thinking about all those principles really early on, which again builds a healthier, more sustainable, stronger business from the beginning.
Beautiful. I, that is perfect. I love that explanation. Thank you. So I'm like, okay, I need a vision board. Where's my vision board?
Good.
And you know what? You're absolutely right. Because one of the things that I did not do is I did not take those steps in the first few years of my business. And it almost cost me. I actually had that conversation with my financial advisor. Like I'm like ready to quit. I don't know what I'm doing. And her, so she had some very valid questions, and she's like, "Oh, so what do you want from this business, and where is it going, and why are you feeling this way?" So we had a very deep conversation, and we looked at what is the plan, and
Mm,
how do we get there. So I had a very wise financial advisor who knew what to ask, an entrepreneur and a business builder. But I also found that originally in the first founding of my business, I made my business about me. So I was like,
mm.
I was the business, right?
Yeah.
And then I had to
Yeah.
slowly start transitioning it to being about the brand, 30-second success, not the brand Laura Templeton. And I think that's something that you have touched on with us. And I think that's really important, especially for founders who want to have that exit strategy in mind. Can you share a little bit about that, your thoughts on not making the brand about you and about making and branding it a sustainable business that can then be sold without you being attached to it?
Of course. And it's an interesting one because it's a bit of a paradox. I'm also very much in the camp at the moment that building personal brands to help elevate business success is actually really important. And I feel like it's much harder to get demand gen with AI search now the way it is, that advertising online, less website traffic going to from search engines to direct to websites. Like it's harder than ever to convert customers. So brand and awareness and personal brand is important, but not at the expense of building something that has innate value or an asset that can be detached from that personal brand and still sold as an asset. And I think it's important, um, a really good example of this is Mr. Beast. So Mr. Beast, obviously biggest influencer in the world, he is trying so hard to decouple himself from and reduce his reliance on being the center of the brand. They've just raised something like a 4 billion valuation. They're trying to create all of these little media offshoots that don't involve him, but none of them are working anywhere near as well at the moment as the ones that involve him because everything has been so aligned to him. He is Mr. Beast. So that's a challenge. So I think it's stacking them carefully together. But if you're a consultancy business or you're doing some sort of coaching or whatever, it's looking at like how can you create a methodology, a framework, something that gives you a repeatable system that you could then train other coaches to deliver without you having to be in the room. And if you do that, all of a sudden you've got a business, and that business then could go on without you being there. And that's the key. So it's like, how can you decouple you from being the eye of the storm as quickly as possible?
I love it. And, and I think that's so powerful is that, people, especially if you think about it from the beginning, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We sometimes we make the mistake of not looking at where we want to be at the end. And that's the whole premise of the work that you're doing now is helping people
yeah,
look at where do you want to be and how do you sell your business or, how or what do you want? What do you want? Right? What do you
yeah.
want? And I think that is so powerful. So thank you for that. After everything that you've built and experienced, how has the definition of success changed for you?
Oh, it's a fantastic question. And I'll be honest, I'm always still searching on this in some ways. I've realized about myself that I get a lot of my self-worth from the businesses that I build, the people that I work with. They always say you are not your business, and obviously you're not, you're more than that. But at the same time, I do get a lot of that kind of piece from it. So success now for me is less about um, the financial rewards of success and more about genuinely like what problems can I solve and how many people can I influence and support with kind of improving their outcomes. So, um, from a founder centric perspective, like how many more founders could reach some sort of exit event and change their lives? If I can influence 10, 100, 1,000 over time, that's fantastic. And yeah, that gives me a lot of purpose. And then success now in life as well. I talked about those pillars. It's important to me that I fill each of them and try and keep them as balanced as possible. I haven't always done that well. I neglected time at home and family and for the 14, 15-hour work days. And, I still don't always get that right, by the way. And I'm not on here saying that I get it right. I still do long hours sometimes, still burn myself out a little bit sometimes, but I'm trying to be a lot more balanced. So that is where success to me lies if I can be more balanced across those spheres of my life.
I love that. I think we're going to end our conversation here because I would not want to add on to that. That's beautiful. Thank you for
Great.
sharing that. And I think, a lot of that comes from trial and error, right? A lot
It
of
does.
a lot of the discovery, the self-discovery comes from trial and error and the confidence that comes with building something and then and scaling and selling and then you look at, okay, what could I do different? And the years
Mm.
have really made an impact. So thank you so much for sharing your success with us, for sharing your story and the work that you're doing now. I truly am grateful for the work that you're doing now. So Luke, before we wrap up, I'd love to give you the opportunity to share something directly with our audience, whether it's your, talk about your newsletter, the work you're doing at the Unusual Group, a resource, or simply, something you want the person listening to hear from you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. It would be great if people would like to join the newsletter. It's the Success Method. You can find it on my LinkedIn or directly on my website, luketobin.com. And there's the book as well, of course, which is in the works. It will be released May next year. However, it is on pre-sale. You can also find more about that at my website, luketobin.com. And would love to keep in touch. And obviously, I'm on
Yes.
social media across all handles, Luke Tobin.
And what's the name of your book, Luke?
It's called The Power of Self-Doubt. So it's a complete reframing of our general understanding of doubt. So I've done lots of research and spent lots of time in my own career trying to understand why at every stage of my career I've had crippling doubt and concerns about my ability, whether that be imposter syndrome, comparison doubt, whatever it is. But what I found is that most high performers that you speak to actually experience doubt, often in ways that they can't articulate or that hits them harder than other individuals, but they find a way to move through it anyway. So or often leverage that doubt as a way of kind of harnessing it to be used for fuel. So I've created an archetype model in the book which helps people reframe doubt, understand how they can move through it. Lots of really actionable frameworks, and we also interviewed 21 other high performers across different industries, from gold medalist Olympians to famous actors that you'll recognize. So yeah, it's a very different take on self-doubt and how you can leverage it.
Oh, I can't wait to read it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I am definitely, in the Luke Tobin camp of reading, and I appreciate you. So thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Luke, one thing I really appreciate about this conversation is that you haven't stopped being ambitious. You've changed your relationship with ambition. And I think there's an important distinction there. Success doesn't have to mean constantly pushing harder, carrying everything ourselves, or sacrificing the people and parts of our lives that matter most. Sometimes the strongest decisions we can make is to stop long enough to ask, am I solving the right problem? Am I building something that can eventually work without me? And am I creating a life I actually want to live while I'm building it? Because ultimately, a successful business should support the life we want to create, not become the reason we miss it. So, thank you so
Love
much for
that.
being here with us. Oh,
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
appreciate you. So, if today's conversation reminded you that success doesn't have to come at the expense of your health, your relationships, or yourself, I hope you'll carry that into your next conversation, your next decision, and the way you choose to build what comes next. And if you are ready to strengthen your communication clarity in message, build confidence in your voice, and connect with authenticity in business and in life, I'd love for you to invite you into the Brand Success Hub. The hub was designed for entrepreneurs, professionals, leaders, and communicators who are done second guessing themselves and ready to communicate with more clarity, confidence, and compassion while learning practical strategies that actually work in the real world. So you can learn more at 30secondsuccess.com/hub. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may need the reminder that building a successful business shouldn't require losing yourself along the way. So until next time, stand in your brand, trust your voice, and remember, success is just 30 seconds away.